It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, a little bit of a different, you switched it up. You're not in are you literally on the porch outside? Is that where we are right now?
Yeah, man. Here in the sunshine. 60 degrees today. Balmy.
Ooh, I was just going to ask that. Okay.
Nice. It's nice.
I'm jealous. 60 degrees would probably feel like 100 here right now if we got hit with that in Western PA. So I'm certainly jealous of what's going on down there. Other than, hold on.
JP Acosta, who's a writer, national writer, was wearing a tassel cap and a puffy jacket. I walked by wearing just a short sleeve T-shirt.
Is he from Jacksonville, or that's just his?
Yeah,
okay.
So okay. It was just,
unbelievable.
It was contrast in where you came from to get to 60 degrees today depends on how it feels to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that I want to touch on, just a quick hitter thing, a little bit of news here as it relates to the Steelers. Russell Wilson going to the Pro Bowl, named as an alternate. He and Drake May both named today, with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson not going. And I'll be honest, the first thing that popped in my mind, I don't have an expectation for who is a Pro Bowler anymore, just because of how many people drop out and then get named as alternates and stuff like that. But it took me back to 2010 when the quarterbacks ended up being Matt Schaub, David Garrard, and Vince Young because of other people dropping out. So that's kind of the vibes that I was getting with Russell Wilson being named a Pro Bowler this year. I believe 18 total touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but 9 turnovers. Did average 225 yards passing per game. But certainly I think it just speaks to what the Pro Bowl has become more than anything else. That Russell Wilson.
The 2023 AFC Pro Bowl squad was Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, and Tyler Huntley.
Gee, so just a couple years ago it was like that. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
When Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow were the 3 that had been voted, and all for different reasons. Burrow was hurt, I believe, and Mahomes was in the Super Bowl, and I'm not sure why Allen ended up opting out, but yeah, there you go.
My goodness, that was the Tyler Huntley Pro.
I gotta say, so somebody commented on my tweet, and they were like, just when you thought you were done with Russell Wilson in the Steelers uniform, this universe had to swerve for you. But hear me out on this. Russ is the kind of guy I want in the Pro Bowl.
Oh,
and know he's gonna take it way too seriously. And take it just as seriously as he does everything. Russell Wilson is gonna go out there and give 110% in the Pro Bowl. I have zero doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. It might be 1-for-1 in terms of making the Pro Bowl.
He is in many ways a perfect Pro Bowl player, and I'm not sure if that is a compliment or an insult at this particular point in time.
Got to see him playing dodgeball. That's what I want. I need that on my TV. So I will actually be tuning into some of the Pro Bowl games, I think, now this year.
Dodgeball is Thursday night, and then the flag football is on Sunday afternoon. So there you go. Yeah, I will be missing the dodgeball. I'll still be here in Mobile for the dodgeball, but I'll be at Camping World Stadium over the weekend for the festivities. So we'll get to talk to Russ and
I think it's got dropped in our group. 3rd most Pro Bowlers, the Steelers. No.
Yeah. Just Baltimore and Minnesota, the only teams with more.
Interesting. Okay, and that takes into because alternates once they're officially going, once people drop out in their name, they're considered there's no differentiation, right? They're just a Pro Bowler, just like everybody else.
Right. And those people are still Pro Bowlers. Josh Allen is still a Pro Bowler, and then somebody else is too. So the Steelers still have more than Buffalo, even with even counting Josh Allen, for example. It's kind of crazy.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. One question
Ravens have 11. Ravens have 11. The Steelers and the Vikings have the Ravens have 11, the Lions have 8, and the Steelers and the Vikings have 7.
Okay. I would say if you weren't going to keep somebody in between, if the Lions were in between there, I think you'd say they're actually tied for second, not even third. But yeah, that's pretty crazy to think about. Stick with the quarterback stuff because we did get one question pertaining to them. Basically, like, do you think that Justin, there's any shot that they would be able to re-sign him if he wasn't guaranteed the starting job? Like, say that it was a situation where I know Art said they were only going to bring one of these guys back. Would they like to have both back? I mean, under the perfect circumstance, probably the price tags aren't going to be able to match that though. But like, do you think that it's possible that they are able to bring Justin back without having, they're going to create competition, but if he's not pretty much guaranteed to be the starter?
I think it would be, I think it's an interesting question. I think the Steelers would have to give Justin an assurance they were not also going to sign Russ. There would obviously be an expectation that they're going to sign somebody,
Yeah.
and probably draft somebody. And like, that's what players want. Like, nobody's guaranteed anything. Like, if TJ Watt shows up at training camp this year and is just terrible for every second of training camp and doesn't get a single sack and doesn't do a single notable positive thing from the start of training camp to the end of the preseason, and Julius Velshoff is just tearing it up on the practice squad, and he finishes the preseason with 30 sacks. Velshoff is starting week 1. Like, no one is guaranteed anything in the NFL. Like, what people want and what people are going to ask for is clear some space. Sign somebody who are you not expecting to be ahead of me? And so that's probably what Justin Fields would be looking for. I'm not sure the opposite would be true. I'm not sure they would need that assurance to sign Russ, but I do think they would need some kind of assurance like that to sign Justin Fields.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm with whether it is, I think Tony Pauline put out there this past week, maybe some level of interest in Joe Flacco as a veteran to bring into the room. That would be so odd, just because, not only the point in his career where Joe Flacco is, but third AFC North team. Like, I know that he played with Cleveland, but I still think about, those battles, obviously, with Baltimore, and that's where my mind goes first with him. And then, yeah, you mentioned the draft too. Like, even if they're not drafting somebody high, still would think that they're going to draft somebody. We talked about this last year. I thought it was going to happen last year. And then when they brought in Kyle Allen, I was like, okay, maybe they're not going to draft a guy this year, but like, you got to get a cheaper option in the quarterback room, like a backup on a rookie contract at some point. I think that's got to happen, even if you're kicking the can down the road towards taking the actual shot at a franchise guy until 26. Yeah, so I mean, I'm with you that I think we could see a vet and a draft pick both, but yeah, I like you said, they're not going to be like, hey, Justin, you're 100% guaranteed to be the starting quarterback. I don't see that world, but
nobody gets that. Like, nobody gets that.
But in terms of the Russell Wilson aspect of that, I certainly see that as well. With
Joe Flacco, I want to put this out into the world because I had this thought and it's funny. I want, like, the Jets, after they're done hiring their new general manager, and they say, okay, we got to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. We're going to get younger at the quarterback position. Joe Flacco back again. Just we're gonna get younger. Aaron's too old to do it really anymore. We don't have faith in him. Let's bring in 41-year-old Joe Flacco instead of, or 40-year-old Joe Flacco instead of 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why. I just think that'd be really funny.
Yeah.
Well, they're kind of screwed because they're going to owe Aaron Rodgers like $59 million in dead cap money if they cut him. So they're going to pay for a quarterback with like 2 packs of gum, pocket lint, and a paperclip.
Real quick, just because you mentioned the Jets, and it kind of sounds like this direction that they're going for OC. Tanner Engstrand, who was the Lions pass game coordinator. I don't know if you would remember this conversation, because we're going back well over, or no, I guess not quite a year. Whenever the Steelers hired Arthur Smith, this was the outside the box name that I threw out there that I would have liked to have seen the Steelers bring in for an interview. And it looks like now he's going to 1 year later end up being an OC.
There you have it, man. A savant.
I was a year off in terms of throwing his name out there for an OC job, but we'll see how that goes for him in New York. Anyways, with you being at the Senior Bowl, I guess we should start to talk about some of the stuff that's going on down there in Mobile, not just as it pertains to Steelers, but really just the landscape in general of what's going on there. Practice is starting today. What's your obviously not a big takeaway for the week yet, but what is like the thing that you are looking forward to the most, whether it's a position group or whatever it might be?
Oh, I think I've got a big takeaway for the week already.
Okay.
Mike Tomlin was just absolutely all over the defensive line today. And Omar and TA is here. I guess we should mention that as well. After the show last night, Art Rooney said on Steelers.com that both TA and Arth and Danny Smith, the coordinators, will all be back for next year. I think we had pretty much assumed that at this point. In fact, I think I said that yesterday, but now sort of official that the coordinators will be back. Both Art and TA here at the Senior Bowl. And TA and Mike Tomlin were literally like in the defensive line drills today. Like Mike Tomlin was just
participating,
a dog on a pile of meat, just drooling over some guys, and a very deep. We talked yesterday about the depth of the defensive line class. I do think so, and I think also a really talented group of defensive linemen here in Mobile. Sometimes you can have a strong overall class, but maybe for one reason or another, they're not here. Guys that played in the national championship game, guys that are injured, the sort of high first rounders that kind of never come here, whatever. This defensive line group, though, it's pretty special, and a lot of the better players are here, and Tomlin was all over that group, man. Like, I don't want to like put too much stock into one day of practice, but like I left practice day being like, well, the Steelers are drafting defensive linemen in the first round. I'm almost sure of it.
Is there somebody or a couple names that you feel like those are the ones that they're probably looking at more closely than others?
Here, certainly. So you got Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, who I think is a really well-rounded player, a big guy, maybe like a little bit of Bud Dupree to his game, but like an interior lineman and not a pass rusher. And so I think like that just sort of like very stout against the run, not necessarily the world's flashiest pass rusher, but I think has a good personality. I think they like the fit. He's a good player. Another guy that's here is Deone Walker from Kentucky, who is actually like the biggest human being I've ever seen move at his speed. He is actually Nick Faribaugh pointed this out today. He's the same size as Dan McCullers when he came out.
Oh my, yeah. There you go.
So like gigantic, but he moves not like Dan McCullers. Like he moves really, really well. And so just a gigantic guy. His pad level is insane because he's so big, but he gets so low. And I just it's crazy. So those are the two guys that are here that I think are really good prospects for the Steelers. And I would say that Nolan is probably a first rounder. I think Walker is between the first and the second round, probably right now. Could be probably not all the way to the Steelers' second round pick, but maybe somewhere in between there is something that could be possible for him. And then there are a couple other guys in that same range. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. We talked about him at the national championship game. Big high motor guy. Kenneth Grant from Michigan, another really big dude that moves well. Sort of another run stopping specialist. And then Harmon from Oregon, Derek Harmon. I think he's more of a like Larry Ogunjobi 1-to-1 replacement kind of deal, like a up the field pass rushing kind of type. TJ Sanders from South Carolina is here as well. I thought he looked good today. It is a really, really, really deep class in general, and really, really strong players here at the Senior Bowl at the position.
Yeah, trenches we've talked about a lot, and I did give a cap tip to our guy Chris Gillis, who I know is watching or listening to the show shortly after it comes out, I'm sure, because it seems like he's always right on it. We appreciate the support, Chris. But he said, don't know if you guys have covered this at all, but working on an article, started looking at draft picks before and after the Con Weidel regime, 2014 to 2022, 35% of the picks in round 1 through 4 were offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and linebacker. Since 2023, so the last 2 years, with Con and Weidl, 80% of the rounds, or I'm sorry, 80% of their picks in rounds 1 through 4 have been those same positions. If you want to include Darnell Washington into the offensive line, which I feel like you can.
Yeah, it's a good shout. And I think, look, I don't think there's any question or any doubt in my mind that if you asked Omar Khan and Andy Weidl with some truth serum or after a few down at Veets here in Mobile, which essentially functions the same way as truth serum, they would prefer to be able to use their first round pick on a defensive lineman in this class. I think the question becomes, can they do enough work in free agency before we get to that point that they feel like enough of their more immediate needs are met that they are able to do that? And I'm not sure that I see necessarily like easy ways to accomplish that. It is accomplishable, but it's not like a slam dunk that it's going to happen.
Yeah, speaking of Veets real quick, if I had a nickel for every time that I had a conversation with Matt Roll at Veets, I'd only have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's more than you would think.
You should have 2.
No, but shout out to Veets. Didn't expect them to get another shout out on the podcast today. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and we've talked about that expectation that hopefully they feel like they've solidified. You don't know how Troy Fautanu is going to come back next season, but they feel like, I'm not going to say the work is done on the offensive side of the line here. Actually, we can go to another question that we got about that. But turn the attention now to the defensive side of the trenches, where you got Cam Hayward there right now. You feel like you got a good piece in Keanu Benton. What's the long-term future look like beyond Keanu Benton, who are going to be his running mates in the long term? But actually, let me flip it back to the offensive line to fit this question in, because it seems like a good spot to do so. Frio J brought up the idea of adding interior offensive linemen, whether it be in the 2nd or 3rd round. So a relatively early pick in 2025. Not something that I've given a ton of thought to, but the one thing that I will add to this is I was pleasantly surprised by the return on investment that they got out of Mason McCormick as a 4th round rookie. But I don't know that he was good enough for me to just say, yep, there's your starting guard in 2025. And that's just the plan 100%. Like, I think I was probably a little bit lower on what I saw from him this season than a lot of people. You also don't know what's going on with Isaac Seumalo. You know, he's got 1 year left on his deal, and we've talked about it. Like, wouldn't completely shock us if he just decided to call it. So, like, you got to have some type of succession plan there as well. What's your thought on adding an interior offensive lineman relatively early?
I don't think it's a bad idea, and I agree with you that I don't think Mason McCormick was like overwhelmingly good this year. Way exceeded expectations for a 4th round rookie, but I thought he was just fine in terms of like compared to other NFL guards. And so you look at the position and it's like, well, you probably maybe have 1 more year of Isaac Seumalo, probably not more than that. And then even if McCormick pans out, you're going to need another player in 2026 anyway. So I think the idea, I kind of look at it 2 ways. Like, I think the idea of drafting another guard and just sort of completing the set in terms of young offensive linemen is a bit attractive, right? To just get the last one. And then you would literally have 5 offensive linemen that, assuming they all work out, you could not replace an offensive lineman for an entire decade at that point. Like, how cool would that be? So, like, on one hand, I see the pull there. On the other, it is still a very young offensive line, even with the experience that Frazier and McCormick and Broderick Jones got this year. And if, like, maybe you do want one veteran guy, maybe you do want one kind of been there, done that type that will be the one to, be a leader and kind of shepherd along these younger guys. So I don't know. It's kind of 2 schools of thought there. The other thing I think they could do is kind of in the middle, where you re-sign somebody with the intention of setting up a competition between that player and Mason McCormick, not just burying him on the depth chart by, say, signing someone who's a starter, but also, like, bring back Nate Herbig. I thought Nate Herbig was really good when he was the center in training camp before he got hurt. I thought he did a really nice job of holding off Frazier, and then Frazier went on to, I think Frazier kind of got rooked here, but in the All-Pro voting, I would have taken Frazier over McGovern, and I would have taken Frazier over either Seumalo or Russell Wilson if you're just talking about Steelers Pro Bowlers. if Herbig was playing better than a guy that I think should have been a Pro Bowler, but he's probably playing good enough to push a guy like Mason McCormick and provide some veteran depth leadership. He's a really well-liked guy in the locker room as well. So, like, you can do something like that. I just think when I look at the draft and the needs the Steelers have and what all it would take, like, we're just talking about, like, how much work they would have to do to get to drafting a defensive lineman in the first round. Mm-hmm. All that plus a whole lot more to then be able to use a day 2 pick on an interior lineman. Now, like, 6th or 7th round, those are just dart throws. You can take whatever you want to take there. I don't really care, but I would have a hard time seeing an interior offensive lineman go before maybe like the 5th round. And that's kind of a shame because I actually like some of the guys in this class. Wiley Mellon from West Virginia thought had a really good day. Played tackle at West Virginia. Is going to be an NFL guard, I think. Man, I thought it was really good today. I was just kind of looking at the West Virginia helmet, like that would fit nice next to Zach Frazier. I don't know if they have the draft capital to make it work.
Well, that's the thing is, like, we've been talking about the positions that they need to add, like the boxes that they need to check. And we, even despite our thoughts on Mason McCormick, we really weren't even including interior offensive line, at least as like a relatively early pick. So, like, yeah, I to talk about that group, though, that you've seen down there, you mentioned one guy that stood out. I've also seen a lot of talk about what's the North Dakota State kid? Zabel or is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, he had a good day today as well. I think it's getting to the point where you see a North Dakota State lineman and you think this guy's probably good. They've had enough of them over the years. And I just think in general, the success of those like Northern FCS powerhouse kind of schools has sort of given us the idea that they're all going to be pretty good. And no one's really upset the apple cart there in a way that makes me think that's going to stop anytime soon. A couple others that I thought were really good. From Sacramento State, a center, Jackson Slater, I thought he was all right. And then Willie Lampkin from North Carolina is very small, but he went up against Deone Walker, all 200 and 300 and gosh, it's probably 30 pounds of him, and held his own. And I think Willie Lampkin's an interesting guy if you need a depth lineman. Maybe like if you very specifically want to draft someone who you could like look at as a 6th offensive lineman, or maybe like a power eye fullback or something like that. Like he kind of has that like athleticism that you could get creative with. I do think there's interesting guys along the offensive line in this draft class. I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to do it. And I also had somebody ask me, different people asked me about 2 different Steelers coaches, but like ask me about position coaches that are here. I didn't see any position coaches, but I mean, it's not unusual that position coaches aren't here. It was kind of unusual to see position coaches here when, they were hyper-focused on offensive line. They did bring Pat Meyer. When they were hyper-focused on quarterback, they did bring Mike Sullivan. And so they have done it, but I don't think I haven't seen a position coach yet, but it's not really unusual that I haven't. So like no Pat Meyer, no Carl Dunbar. If you're wondering about the future of those guys and trying to read something into whether they're here or not, I wouldn't.
Mentioned Sac State in there. Shout out Brennan Marion. Not that he was this player's head coach, right? Because he just got hired. Was it in December? So
yeah.
But maybe see some more talent start getting churned out of Sac State with Brennan Marion taking over there. Another position group that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about here in the coming time before the draft is obviously the running back position. We've talked about how deep it is with 30 guys. Who stood out to you on day one at that position?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a tough day. Look, it's really hard to evaluate running backs here. You have offensive linemen that don't even know each other's names yet, trying to block in a scheme that they just learned for the first time. So, like, there's a lot of free guys. There's a lot of holes that aren't there where they're supposed to be. I think the thing that, like, you can kind of get fooled by is that the guys that are really elusive and really are, can just, like, make something out of nothing, they end up looking better. But sometimes that's kind of fool's gold because really the best thing a running back can do is run a play the way it's blocked. But if you're not blocking them, you're in some trouble as a team. Here, I mean, it is what it is. These guys are only here for 3 days. I was kind of interested. The one guy I was kind of like looking forward to, I just didn't see a lot of him in college, was Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State. And I I kind of got to look at him today, and I wasn't like I don't think he's a bad player, but like in terms of the fit for the Steelers, he just like he reminds me a lot of Najee Harris, and like
I think he has shed some weight, to be honest. He put on what 12 pounds or so from 23 to 24, something like that.
He runs very upright. He doesn't change direction super fast. He's strong and he's tough and he breaks tackles. But like if the Steelers are worried that Najee Harris is a bad fit for their offense, then I don't see them thinking that Ollie Gordon is a good one. I did think that the Miami running back, Martinez, I think is his name. I thought he impressed me.
Devin Neal's the one that I'm looking. Oh, and Bishal Tootin, because Bishal Tootin's probably the best like outside zone runner that's going to go on like day 2, and I think it'd be a good fit for what Art wants to do.
Yeah, I thought both in the early practice, Martinez and Tootin really looked like guys that would be like Arthur Smith kind of running backs. Donovan Edwards, I thought, showed really good contact balance. I feel like he's the opposite of some of those other things where like he just breaks tackles. So like they're not being a blocker doesn't really matter to him. But I thought he looked really good today. I really liked Jaquavius Marks. I didn't think he had a great day or anything. Like he didn't do anything that like knocked my socks off today, but I think he's an interesting player from USC. And then Devin Neal in the second one, I think he's a very well-rounded prospect. Like there's just not a lot of holes in his game. He hasn't really been a receiver very much. I guess that's the one thing that like Kansas never threw him the ball. So that's probably the one thing that I'll be looking for this week to see if he's able to prove.
And even then it's more so like not knowing than can't do.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Then he can't. And Trevor Etienne, I think mostly because of the name is a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing, but this is like, unlike the defensive line group, I think the best of the running backs are not here, and like if this, like Caleb Johnson's not here, Omarion Hampton's not here, Judkins and Henderson from Ohio State aren't here. Cam Scatterbo's not here from Arizona State. Genty obviously is not here. And so like, there's a lot to the running back class that is not here. So it kind of makes some sense if you're going to pick a position group at the Senior Bowl to obsess over, that it's defensive line and not running back, even if you consider those as your top 2 needs or top 2 of your top 3 needs, but your top 2 needs and the areas where this draft class is the best. Wide receiver is the other position, and I talked all this morning about wide receiver on Morning Rush. There is not a first-round wide receiver here, and I didn't think any of the passing offense looked good today because the quarterback play was just dreadful. Jackson Dart, I thought, was the only guy who was like average. Everybody else I thought looked awful, including Jalen Milroe, who didn't even really like attempt to make a difficult throw. I thought he was really disappointing in terms of passing. Didn't do anything running the ball. It was all throwing. And so, yeah, I think there were a lot of opportunities for the wide receivers to make routine plays. There were some opportunities to make some special ones, and I didn't think a lot of people did. Higgins from Iowa State, I thought, was the only guy in the first group that really stood out. There were a couple more in the second group. Is it Besh from TCU? I think he looked good. Ty Felton made a great catch from Maryland, went up to get it. And I think Jalen Royals from Utah State is a guy that I really like. I'm not sure about his fit for the Steelers, but I think he did some nice things today as well. So there are some wide receivers here, but it's not like this, it's not like what we've seen at the wide receiver position. Xavier Restrepo from Miami is a guy that I kind of like, but I didn't think he did much today. Tez Johnson weighed in 150 pounds. I just think you can, I think he's a good player, but I think you can cross him off the Steelers board. He's just too much like what they already have in Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson to want a third one of those guys.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, because my favorite drill when I've gone there in the past is watching the wide receiver DB one-on-ones. And while the Steelers' attention is going to be on the defensive line a ton, those are 2 other positions of need. So I think that they're going to have their eyes on those drills and how they go as well. But it does make it tough when you're not getting the QB play. But you can still tell, is he beating his guy at the line of scrimmage in those drills? And
there's so many videos that I deleted from my phone where it's like, really good hard move, 2 guys running down the field, hip and hip, battling, hand fighting, trying to get position, and then you see the ball just kind of fall almost on the edge of the frame, like 5 yards
right out.
And you're like, what? Well, I don't know who won that rep. It doesn't matter if you're not getting good quarterback play. It's really hard to kind of evaluate there. So I think bad quarterback play does allow wide receivers to make some spectacular plays. And I don't think that many people stepped up to make it, but it's not really a fair evaluation. Like, you got to find somebody that can put the ball there. I think this is, I'm disappointed in the quarterbacks through day one.
I will say, I want to add this because, you mentioned with the running backs, a lot of talent in the class, maybe not as much there as what's not there. But we've talked about the receiver group. I don't know that, like, even though there's not that many guys there, there's also, like, I think a weaker class just in general for receivers as opposed to what we've seen. We've talked about how pro ready they come into the NFL now, and there's just immediate impact players. I'm not saying that's not going to happen this year. There's going to be guys that surprise, obviously, and there's some guys at the top. Ted McMillan, obviously, Emeka Ibuka, Luther Burden, those types. Golden out of Texas. But I don't see the depth of the class that we've seen, or at least in the middle rounds that we've seen in past years.
Yeah, there's some interesting guys late, but like in terms of like top 100 picks, like first 3 rounds, it's not it's not that good of a class. And like you talked about there, like Elk Ayumanor from Stanford pulled out, Savion Williams from TCU pulled out, Trey Harris is not here. I think he was at the Shrine Bowl from Ole Miss. Isaiah Bond not here. Matthew Golden not here. Now Texas goes into the the semifinals. Like Buka, Ohio State, wins the national championship. I think that probably plays into some of that. But like, yeah, it's not that great of a class, and there's a lot of guys that aren't here, and I think that makes it difficult to get a sense for what the team is feeling about that position. It's very easy to get a sense for what the team is feeling about defensive tackle right now. Those guys are here and they like them. I don't really have a strong, we'll have to get through the process a little bit, get to the combine, get to pro days, I think, before we're able to really learn what the Steelers are thinking about wide receiver.
I had to look it up because I was hoping Trey Harris was doing something. Yeah, he's slated to play in the game as well, the East West Shrine Bowl game on Thursday. So I think, like, just in terms of style of player, like the profile that he fits, say the Steelers were to trade George Pickens and they're not drafting a receiver in the first round, I think they like Trey Harris.
I like Trey Harris. I like Ayumanor too from Stanford. I think he's a good player, good separator. Jaden Higgins is interesting to me. I think he has the kind of like star receiver traits. He doesn't have the production, right? But I think you can like look at the package and kind of dream on it a little bit more than a 5'10" guy. Like I can't. I don't know. Like I can't see it. With a lot of these guys. Not to say you can't be. I mean, obviously Tyreek Hill is one of the best receivers in the NFL. I don't know. I think what the Steelers have been on offense and what they're likely to be on offense, and you look at the receivers that have had success in Arthur Smith's scheme, it's Corey Davis, it's A.J. Brown, it's George Pickens, it's Drake London, it's Mac Hollins. Somebody brought up in a comment too, the Steelers signed every possible Arthur Smith cast-off except for Mac Hollins, and he goes and he's making plays in the AFC Championship game, which is kind of ironic, but like it's been the bigger guys in this offense that have thrived. And so between that and the fact the Steelers already have Austin and Roman, I think, I'm with you. Trey Harris is a better fit. Like, regardless of their talent level, Trey Harris is a better fit than Isaiah Bond. Emeka Ibuka is a better fit than Luther Burden. Like, just because of like what the Steelers have, what they don't have, and like what their scheme demands.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, this was a lot of fun. I say we do it again tomorrow. But until then, tell the people they can find you.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it tomorrow. We're going to have to figure this out. We'll talk more off. But I have interviews in the evening tomorrow, so we're going to have to figure something. It might be a very late afternoon drive, a like Hawaii time afternoon drive, or I may need you to run without me tomorrow. So we'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. We'll figure it out. But until then, tell the people they can find you.
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account. SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid. Sign up for SN Plus using promo code Allen10. Get ad-free reading on Steelers Now, which is the best part, and also all the best stuff from me, DB, and the whole Steelers Now team, which is also really cool. And make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel as we continue the trek to 15,000. Just 71 away.
Gino, we're of Game Malkin subscribers away from 15K. Not related to the Steelers, but
Matt Filer There you go.
Nate Herbig, right? Talked about bringing him back.
Was Flozell Adams 71?
I don't know. He might have been. What a name to throw out there.
Flozell Adams 71.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, Flozell Adams.
Boy. Okay. Well, there you go. And also leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else. Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from. You'll find us there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. You'll find me everywhere. Where?
Orpheus Roy. Dropping that one down.
That's the name. That's the name you want to leave people off. Yes, people loved it yesterday. They started throwing out names of their own that they could think of for 84.
Continue to do this.
Yeah. Hey, that's good though. That shows you. So we were at 84 during yesterday's episode. Now we're already at 71. So yeah. That's
tomorrow will be at like Dermontti Dawson or maybe Jeff Hardings, John Jackson,
maybe Jeff Reed. Let's hope for that one.
Gary Anderson.
But until then, you can find me everywhere at Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.